Welcome to this panel on what makes diaconal action different. With me here today are Reverend Dr. Kaisamarie Hintikka, who is the Director for the Department for Theology and Public Witness of the Lutheran World Federation.
Hello.
And then we have also Reverend Dr. Carlos Bock, who is the Executive Secretary of the Lutheran Foundation of Diakonia in Porto Alegre in Brazil.
Hello. Hi.
And then we have Reverend Jakob Sundarsingh, who is the National Coordinator of Dalit and Adivasi Concerns Desk of the United Evangelical Lutheran Churches in India.
Hello.
Now again, we are here engaging each other in a conversation on what makes diaconal action different. If I may just start, perhaps with Dr. Kaisamarie Hintikka. Sometimes people pose a question to the church. If you really care about fighting poverty, why don't you just support big NGOs, non-governmental organizations, such as Red Cross? Why does the church need its own diaconia? What would be your response, I wonder?
Thank you, Musa. I do understand the question from certain point of view. But for a church or for a Christian individual, diaconia is not actually a matter of choice. It's part of the core self-understanding of a Christian person and a Christian church. Diaconia is the way Christ himself works in individual human being, in sinner and in believer, but also in Christian community. It is actually the love of Christ which is then implemented through the good deeds, or which is affecting the good deeds in human beings and in the church as well. So diaconia is not something that churches have choice to do because for some reason they don't want to join the non-religious, non-faith-based NGOs in development work, for example. But it's part of being the church in this world.
Thank you very much. Perhaps we can turn over to Porto Alegre and also hear from Dr. Carlos Bock.
Yeah, thank you, Musa. I also understand the question, and besides this important theological and biblical perspective, I think we also need to consider the contextual perspective. Some of the poor or less developed countries, we need to consider that they don't have a very well civil society organized, and sometimes even if they do have some NGOs, well, Christian communities or faith communities still have a very important role to play, in the sense that they are closer related to the people, and so they know what are the needs. And in that sense, I agree also that in such context, being close to the people and to the needs of the people, the diaconal perspective is an integral part of the mission of the church. So the church cannot be there and cannot do mission without also including the diaconal perspective. So, but you could also apply the same perspective also to the most developed countries, in the sense that also in those type of realities, the diaconal perspective is very much a part of what the church is called to do and to be as integral mission. So,
perhaps some perspectives from India. We turn to Jakob.
Thank you, Dr. Musa. I'm really glad to be part of this panel. India is a nation, as all of us know, which has the problem of caste, observing caste, which discriminate people as higher and lower, as holy and unholy, as people and no people. Therefore, the church from the beginning has committed itself to take care of this kind of people who are living in this particular society. And the church has become a very strong instrument as it has understood the core of the gospel of Jesus Christ. and it never bothered to have more income or anything back, but it became a service organization wherein it gave more energy, more human resources, more financial resources, not only from abroad, from other countries, from Europe, but also from the people in India itself. So, sacrificing for the betterment of fellow human beings has become one of the core aspects of Indian Lutheran Church and Indian churches. Therefore, I always feel that diaconia is an essential thing which church ought to do and it is doing, and church is the main organization which is not looking for any blessings or any merit back. Therefore, I am of the opinion that being an NGO or being doing some work with some other organizations who don't have that spirit may not be that helpful, but we are strongly rooted in the love of Christ, which helps us to get inspiration to do our ministry in a better way.
So would you therefore say that for the church to engage in diaconia is not a matter of choice, Kaisa?
Good question after the witnesses from brothers here. Of course, it's a matter of choice. In each individual context, church needs to make the decision to which particular areas of society and life it has the best role to affect, and to have the ability to read the context in order to see which are the most urgent requires arising from the needs of individual persons and from the needs of society in that particular context. From that perspective, yes, it is a matter of choice. But basically, as part of church life, there is no such a possibility that church is not doing diaconia.
Thank you very much. Okay, now since we have now some clarity why diaconia or social services by the church are needed, we will then have to ask ourselves, in what way does diaconia differ from government or NGO providers? Is there a difference after all? Jacob?
Definitely, there are much differences between what the church is doing, what others are doing. For example, when hospitals were started, when educational institutions were started by the churches, particularly the Lutheran churches in India, they never established those organizations in cities or in big places where rich people can come and get benefited. Almost all the hospitals, all the primary educational schools and everything were established in the places where people were denied basic facilities. Therefore, the institutions have become a symbol of God's love, a symbol of emancipation, and symbol of being with them in their problems. Therefore, I always feel that the ministries or the diaconia done by the church is entirely different. Now in Indian context, health is commercialized, education is commercialized. The people who have money will have better education. The people who have money will have better health provisions. The people who do not have money will not have better education, will not have better health provisions. Therefore, definitely from Indian context, I can strongly say that the diaconia done by church is entirely different from the ministries done by other NGOs.
Someone may push a little further, and I would like to turn to Dr. Carlos Bock here, that, suffering has no distinction. So what makes diaconia different from any other services?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question, Musa. Well, I see that the diaconal response is similar to to other type of responses, such as the governmental or NGOs, in the sense that we need to do a very qualified type of commitment and response, in the sense that we need to offer very good quality in a transparent, accountable way, and so we also need to look for good results, etc. In this sense, I think diaconal work can also be professional, in the sense that it is a very efficient. But I think the starting point is different. From the Christian perspective, the diaconal response always will start from a commitment that comes out from the faith perspective. The understanding that Jesus lived that out in his own life, and he brought that message also as an invitation, as a challenge for the church. So what we do as church in our diaconal commitment is also a response. It's an answer. It comes out of our faith commitment, and this starting point, I think, it makes a difference. We will be called to do the best as church, to do an organized work and do it in the best way, but we will do it always from a faith perspective and out of a commitment to love the neighbor. I think this is might be a subtle difference, but is a very important difference. Musa, if I may, I think also, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I think also the community perspective is very important. When we do diaconal work, when we do diaconal service, we not only attend individuals, we might do that also, but we do it in a perspective, in a community perspective, trying to integrate the people and the person in a community, and also helping the community to integrate the people that need to be, in a way, supported by our diaconal commitment. So I think this community perspective is very much important for our understanding of our diaconal commitment.
So, in a sense, for you, on one dimension, there is no difference, because churches also have to be professional. They do it well, like any other organization. But then the entry point, the starting point, is the difference. Yeah,
that's important. I think we, in that sense, we affirm our identity, where we come from, and why we do what we do. We do because we love our neighbors, and as part of that love, we will then engage in also, being in support of what they need, and that is part of what we understand as integral mission of the church.
Kaisa, any other perspective?
Yes, I would like to bring in here the excellent LWF document published in 2009, Diakonia in Context, which talks about the two dimensions of diaconia. We already mentioned the contextual one, which is the horizontal context, the horizontal dimension of diaconia. But then what makes diaconia particular is the vertical dimension, that is the relationship between God and the mission that we have received from God as church and as individual Christians to do diaconal action, to be there for the suffering neighbor and for the suffering world. And the combination of these two dimensions, actually, I think when these two dimensions come together, there is the third dimension, and that is the dimension of hope, which the diaconal work has something very particular in it, because that brings in God between the person who brings the help or the aid or the service to the suffering one. But there's always God and Christ playing a role in there. So there are actually three persons present, and through that, I can see three dimensions there. And what makes it very important is the dimension of hope. Hope for better reality, if not in this world, then in God's reality at least.
Thank you. I would then like to move it to another question here. There is also a critique that the diaconal organizations sometimes have become so large and even detached from the congregations and the churches. What would be done to ensure, first of all, that they are more effective and that there is connectivity? Well, is that a problem? Is it a problem that diaconal organizations get so large and seem to be detached from the congregations? And what can be done in order to ensure that they are A, effective, B, they are better connected to the churches, but also C, they are more connected among themselves? Maybe I can start with Carlos this time.
Okay, Musa, thank you. Well, this is a very important question as well. I see, as I mentioned before, we do have the challenge to do a very efficient, effective work in our diaconal response and perspective. In that sense, in most cases, we are even challenged to do a professional work. And that is also related to being accountable to those who contribute also with the funding of the work we do. So the professional challenge is one part of what we are talking about. And in that sense, we will sometimes hire people that, well, they are professional, and they might have or not a close relation to the church. But what is important also to keep in mind is that the original commitment that originated the diaconal response needs to be affirmed together with this call to do an effective work. And in that sense, yes, it is very important to keep the relation of the organization with a community of faith, because this diaconal work is representing in a way the community of faith in relation with society. It will be good for both sides, for a diaconal organization to be linked to a community of faith, and also for the community of faith to be linked with the diaconal organization. They will both benefit of this relation. In fact, sometimes it's not easy because it demands a good representation from both parts, and it also demands a very good communication capacity of really have the intention to be engaged together. But I do understand that it is necessary to keep this close connection. Otherwise, the organization might become just another NGO and lose its own roots and identity.
Just another NGO. Jacob, a few words on this?
Whenever I think of this term diaconia, I always feel that it should come from within. It should be an initiative from individuals, not imposed on somebody else. Therefore, when church is having so many organizations, bigger in size, with more staff and infrastructure and other things, it becomes more institutionalized. That passion, the glow, that spirit of serving others, not bossing over others, that really miss many times. Therefore, when Dr. Musa asked whether churches having big organization is a problem, to a certain extent I should say yes, it is a problem. Because when to second, third, fourth generations of leaders or people who are in charge of this transfer, they don't have that real glow, they don't have that real inspiration with which they wanted to do. Therefore, every time with every individual, it's a responsibility to make them to feel that they are called to serve the people, not to get some power, authority, monetary help from others. in Indian context, to do diaconia, there are so many areas where we can initiate without even a small amount of money, a little word of love, a little word of encouragement, a time spending with the bereaved family to console, encourage them, not necessarily with the big sermons, but just being with them. And very simple, smaller things, people are not realizing that they are important. They think when they say diaconia, it is organizing a big meeting, talking much, and making things to happen. I don't believe in such kind of activities. Rather, as an individual, we can just be together, be with them, and strengthen them. And in a smaller way, when we do certain things, it brings so many good results. Therefore, I'm not critical about the institutionalizing of diaconal organizations, but I'm insisting that that spirit of serving others, making ourselves meaningful neighbors to others, should be inculcated through our teachings, our sermons, our liturgy, our worship, and so many other ways.
Any final comment from Kaisa regarding the connectivity between diaconal institutions and the church?
Well, my best expertise might be to speak about from the perspective of my background, which is the Nordic Europe or Finland in particular, where the local parishes or local congregations carry the responsibility of the diaconal work in grassroots level. They each, according to the church law, each local congregation has to have at least one position for the ministry of diaconia, for the ministry of service. So actually there are no such big central diaconal institutions in the national level in Finland. But what I would see as a challenge is then the connection between the vision of the diaconal action of the church in the local level, when we are talking mostly about our immediate neighbors, and then that connecting to the international diaconia, which is sometimes, one can see that, for example, in big annual national fundraising campaigns, where the incomes of those campaigns are shared between the international diaconia and the local one. And people are saying, yes, I would give some money, but I would prefer to give that to the domestic purposes and not for the international ones. So the main challenge there is the understanding of who is my neighbor, where are the limits of my responsibility as a person living in welfare society, which Finland still is. And I could see from that perspective, that is the biggest challenge. How do we see and understand from some perspective ourselves as Christians, as citizens, as global citizens of the whole world, and not just citizens of my little village or my commune here in the corner of Europe. And from Finnish point of view, that is actually the biggest challenge.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Carlos in Porto Alegre and Jakob in India and Kaisa here in Geneva. Thank you very much for your contributions and the perspectives on what is it that really makes the diaconal action of the church different. And I hope this has been a wonderful time for you also. Best wishes.
Indeed. Thank you, Musa.
Thank you.